So there's a lot to talk about today. I have to tell you, the Kendricks, when they make a film, they have a way of sort of honing in on something that's going on always in the culture, in the world around us. And The Forge is no different. What do you think the film sort of speaks to that we need to hear right now in our culture?
I really think it's the impact on one person's life to the life of another person. I think that in our mega macro world where it seems like the message is that bigger is better, that maybe we've lost a little bit of the concentration on the impact that one on one discipleship can actually have. And this movie brings that back to the forefront. And that when one person makes a decision that they're going to invest in the life of, particularly in this case, a younger person, the ripple effect of that is absolutely astounding. So I hope that it will remind people that every life, including theirs, can be incredibly impactful in huge ways.
Yeah, and obviously the focus on a young person when this was being made, it was, in the midst of a lot of sort of the beginnings of what we've seen. Obviously, the word revival's been thrown out there, and there are different opinions on what word should be used. But in your position and what you do, obviously speaking to people of all ages and obviously performing as well, you do a lot of very interesting things, which we'll get into. But what is it like for you to sort of watch young people at this moment that this film is going to be talking about this sort of rise up in fascinating ways and have relationships with the Lord?
Well, the main way that it touches me in a personal way is that I'm a mother of three sons. In fact, they're the exact same age as the young man that's the main character in this film. That's what drew me to it. That what I pray for as a mom is that there will be other people outside of me who will have incredible influence on my sons' lives. My sons happen to be athletes, so I pray about their coaches. I'm praying about the professors that they interact with on their university campus, that the voices that will be most loud in their ears will be somebody, in their case, since they're young boys, I'm praying for men that they don't even know that they're being lined up with my sons to help them in areas of character, in areas of excellence in industry, to help them to steer their passions in the marketplace, whatever it is, that they'll be paired up with people who can impact them in very unique ways that I can't as their mama, because sometimes the young people stop listening to their parents, but they will listen to another adult that may be saying the exact same thing, but in a different way that they're able to receive it. And it really does embed into their heart. So that same sort of sense of revival that we've seen on college campuses and spreading far and wide, I'm praying that for my own children. And that's what endeared me to this film, that the lives of other people in their lives will help to make that happen.
Yeah, what an amazing prayer too for parents who are watching or listening and grandparents too, right? Or even
Oh,
somebody who has a young person in their life to be praying for the people around them. That's
yes.
powerful. And I think we don't often, sometimes we forget to do that.
I would agree. But again, when I look back on my own life, it almost brings tears to my eyes now because in hindsight, I realize that the women that were 10 or 20 years my senior when I was 20 and they were 40, or I was 28 and they were 58, and they would take a minute to look me in my eyes and challenge me or ask me questions or encourage me along the way. I recognize now as a nearly 50-year-old woman that those were the voices that were making the difference. I didn't know in the moment. They were actually shifting the trajectory of the next step I would take, of whether I'd have the courage to take the risk, whether I would feel encouraged enough to keep going in something that I wanted to quit. It was those people that paid attention to me back then that made an incredible difference in my life. So I see the impact of that for me and for my husband. He has a similar story. So, yeah, I'm praying for that for my kids, that the Lord will line them up with folks who will place value on them, listen to them, and help steer them.
Yeah, especially when you grow up in the church, which I did as well. And I would say the same thing in my own story. The people who are in your journey, who are around you, sort of mirroring what your parents are telling you, and you're listening to them. And influence is so important. And you have the Forge here really dealing with this and showing this. Tell us a little bit about your character. Who is she and what's going on in her life?
Yep. And you know what? I'm going to answer that question, but I wanted to say something too in regards to what we were just talking about. What I loved about the movie The Forge is that there are men represented who are not in vocational ministry. They are like businessmen. They are
Mm.
working in different sectors of the marketplace, but they don't count themselves out of discipleship because they're not pastors. They're saying, no, on this job or in this area of industry, I'm supposed to have my eyes open to impact young people who want to do the same thing I do, whatever that skill set might be. So in the film, I'm Cynthia and I'm a single mother of a young boy who's kind of floundering. He's just sort of hanging out. He's 19, right on the cusp of manhood, but he's still living off his mama. So she still has a voice in his life. You know, she can say, no, no, we're not playing video games all day. That's not what we're gonna do. I can hear myself talking to my own kids when I was in the character because I was like, that's exactly what I not only would, but have had to say to my boys on occasion. Let me tell you what we not going to do. I have expectations that still align with the thoughts that I have for your future, and I'm going to challenge you to rise up. And this mother is challenging her son. And at the same time, you kind of find out as the film is going on, she's praying, Lord, please, would you send some other people, particularly men, into my son's life who will help to get some fire lit under him. And so we get to see that play out in the film.
Yeah, that's powerful. And going back to what we were saying before, even, I feel like a lot of us have gotten a little lazy when it comes to evangelism. We've sort of forgotten
Totally.
the Great Commission, right? And it's, we're supposed to do that no matter where we are. We can't just rely on the pastors to do that. That's all of our jobs. That's what Jesus calls us to. And yet, a lot of us, we just kind of phone it in. And you see, I mean, some of these numbers of how many people really have a biblical worldview, they're pretty low. And that can be discouraging. But at the same time, the encouragement on the other side of seeing that revival and seeing young people really wake up. I don't know if you want to reflect on that, but I wanted to just reiterate it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're exactly right. Like, we're supposed to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth. I mean, think about that. It's not like we're supposed to be the salt in the shaker. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. We're supposed to spread out into every area of industry and every skill set and every arena in education and in arts and in social justice. We're supposed to do what it is that the Lord has equipped us and given us a passion and a skill set to do. And while we're there in that industry, ask the Lord to open up our eyes so that while we're operating in excellence, so that we can't be displaced or denied because what we bring to the table is so significant to that marketplace or that industry. But at the same time, Lord, where is there a young person that you've placed them right next to me, right here in this office or here on this film set? Like I've seen the Kendrick brothers do it. They're master filmmakers, but they're at the same time watching for these young people that are around them. Come here, let me show you how this camera works. Come here, let me show you how to make sure the scope of lighting looks right in order for this scene to be captured. That's discipleship. It's allowing them to see your excellence in your industry, but at the same time, tell them it's worth it because we're doing it all for the glory of God.
No, I love that. And I want to pivot into your story a little bit because I do find it so fascinating. You've done a number of films now, right? And so having known you as an author and as a speaker and speaking into so many people's lives, back in 2015, I think it was 2015, War Room and sort of pivoting into acting. I mean, when you look back now and here we are talking about your next film, is it shocking to you in any way that God has been like, hey, I'm putting you on this acting journey now?
I am completely shocked. Like, I don't know how this happened or what is happening. It was never a plan or a strategy that I had. It was honestly, when I look back on my entire life of ministry, it was somebody seeing something in me and then giving me an opportunity to serve the Lord in that way. I still have a hard time considering myself to be a writer, for example. And here I am, 22 books later, and I'm still kind of like, am I a writer? But it was somebody saying, no, you can do it. And that message is worth being on paper. It will reach far more people than you would ever be able to stand in front of and speak to. I'm so glad that someone challenged me beyond my comfort zone. And with the Kendrick brothers, when they were writing War Room, they called me and said, we keep thinking of you for this character. And I remember saying to them, no, do you know that I'm not an actress? And we've all seen those movies that could have been good, but there was that one actor that was horrible and ruined the whole thing. And that's all I could think about. And I texted them the names of several African American women actresses that could actually do a good job, that are skilled at acting. And they said, no, Priscilla, just read the script. We think you'll see that it's not just a movie, it is ministry. It's still in line with what it is that you do. It's just a different way of doing it. And in that way, they stretched me. So here, now this is the fourth film that I'll be in. I'm still kind of stunned that I get an opportunity to do this. because never in a million years would you have ever been able to convince me that I would be on a movie screen. But here's what I know. There are, I think at this point, 200 million people that have seen War Room. If I spoke
Wow.
to 1,000 people every day for the rest of my life, I couldn't reach 200 million people. So the fact that the Lord would give me an opportunity for my life to have intersected with the Kendrick brothers or the Irwin brothers, or the opportunities that I have to do ministry in this way, I know that there's a whole bunch of people out there that may never read a book that I'd write, never come to a church or a women's conference that I might be speaking at, but they will go sit in a movie theater. So I just feel grateful that the Lord would allow me an opportunity to touch people like that.
I love what you just said and breaking down those numbers of the impact, right? And going wherever God calls you, which is what you've done. And I'm not just saying this to you, it's the truth. You are very good at acting. You're good at it. So it's not, I know everybody it's intimidating. I can't imagine, taking on the roles that you've taken on. They're big roles and coming into it not having that background, but now you do have that background. You've done 4 of these and you're very good at it.
Thank you. That
No,
means a
I
lot.
mean it. And I love the way you look at it as part of the ministry and a continuation of that. And it kind of reminds me of a question, last time we talked, I don't think we got into this, but obviously coming from a family of faith and, all of you sort of in ministry, what was your moment? And this is a loaded question, so forgive me, but answer it as long as you need to. What was your moment where you sort of realized, I need to own my faith for my own? And then
Mm,
sort of even dovetailing into when you realized this is actually going to be what I do with my life.
yeah. Well, I would say college was that time frame. I'm away from my parents now in that sort of that bubble of being in church where we grew up in church, solid foundation. I had parents of integrity. I have parents of integrity. So we didn't see this duplicitous life where they were one way at church and another way at home. They weren't perfect parents. They would say that. They weren't perfect, but they were consistent. They had integrity. So that bubble of integrity, that bubble is popped when you go outside into a world where people have very different situations that they've come from, and you're learning and your eyes are being opened that this isn't normal. Everybody's situation isn't this way, and that they're having to make choices about what kind of people they're going to be despite their backgrounds. I'm going to have to make the kind of choice about what kind of person I'm going to be despite or in spite of or because of mine. But I realize that God doesn't have grandchildren. He has children. So I have to make my own decision. It's not my parents' decision. So I was challenged a lot by that. I didn't make great decisions in college. And I realized in hindsight that was when I woke up that I'm going to have to choose relationships. I'm going to have to make decisions about the influences I'm going to allow, small things like the music I'm going to listen to, the friendships that I'm going to accommodate, that those things weren't just going to organically be okay. Now I'm going to have to stand flat footed and decide what kind of person I'm going to be. In terms of ministry, throughout my 20s, the Lord was very clearly closing doors. That was the direction I thought I was going to go into. I went to school to be a broadcast journalist. I wanted to be a news anchor. That was my plan. And I
Oh,
was
I didn't
excited
know
to
that.
graduate.
Wow.
Yeah, that was what I went to school for. And I was ready to graduate and move to Podunk, Nevada and start at the bottom because that's what you do in news and work your way up. So that was my goal. And I was headed in that direction. And the Lord kept clearly closing doors. They would open slightly. And then as soon as I'd get my foot in the door, it would close one after the other, which was devastating to me as an early 20-year-old young
Yeah.
person. And you're just trying to find your way. It's just, feels crippling. But then he was opening these tiny doors for ministry, just people asking me to come and share God's word to a group of college students. And I did that over and over and over again. And to make a long story short, the doors to share God's word just never stopped. It's been 25 years and the opportunity kept coming. But I remember my father saying to me as I wrestled with whether or not to continue to pursue this broadcast journalism side of my life, I remember in one conversation, he said something to me that has literally shaped and informed basically every decision I've made since then. He said to me, Priscilla, which one of those things would you do if you were not getting paid to do it?
Mm,
That made
wow.
my decision. I knew nothing lit my heart up. Nothing gave me as much passion and satisfaction as when I was sharing God's word. It never occurred to me that it would be something that would be like I guess, a career for lack of a better word, or something I would do it the whole of my life. I was just going to do it to the 5 women that were sitting there in the little Bible study at SMU for 5 years at Southern Methodist University. I was just doing that. And that was ministry to me. And it still is, no matter if it's 10,000 women in an arena or if it's the 10 that I'm serving on a local level. It's all the same to me, or it's a movie screen, or I'm writing a book. It's all the same. But I knew when Dad asked me that question. And by the way, that is the question that I ask still to myself about every project. It does not matter. The pay part of it is not a concern for me. I am asking, would I do this just out of passion to the Lord? Would I do this as a ministry to God's people? Would I do this as an offering to Him? If I feel that, yes, this is where the Lord is calling me and compelling me, then I'm so grateful to my dad for using that as really the steering mechanism for my choice then and ongoingly since.
Yeah, and seeing how you've navigated that in trusting again and again and again what is coming your way, all the way from the movies down to the books. I mean, you mentioned the number of books you've written. It's incredibly impressive. And that sort of brings me to your latest book, I Surrender All, which I love that title. And it's really dovetailing with what we're speaking about here. But tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about this book and what you're hoping to leave people with.
Well, it really does, connect with the message of the film. There are many people who are believers that are not disciples. Salvation is free, but discipleship is costly because you are literally surrendering every aspect of your life and saying, Lord, do with that what you will. And the reality is, I sometimes don't recognize the parts of my life that are not sinful, they're not wrong. They've just taken top priority over and above my allegiance to Christ. And you don't know it until the Holy Spirit starts asking you to loosen your grip on maybe a goal or an ambition or an entertainment choice or a relationship. And He's asking you to loosen your grip. That's when you realize how tightly you're holding on to. And the response time is what clues me into the fact that, oh man, this thing is taking first place. It's taking me too long to let go. So the I surrender all, such a simple topic because it's a simple concept, but it really is powerful and poignant in its impact. Is He Lord or not? And whether or not we're willing to release and relinquish control to Him about the outcome of circumstances, the expectations we have for what our kids will become, the dreams we've had for our lives, the daily entertainment choices that we choose for ourselves, unless we're willing and see in ourselves a complete relaxing and surrendering to Him, then we haven't put Him in first place. That's what discipleship is all about. Will we put Him in first place?
And that is a powerful message. Priscilla, where can people go if they want to get information on the film, on this book and your other books? Where can they go to do that?
Well, our ministry is Going Beyond Ministry. So you can find out everything about us at goingbeyond.com. And then I know there is a website for the Forge movie. I feel like if I say it, I'm gonna say it wrong. So I think I might need to
We
trust
will
you.
we will link out to it. We will link out to it.
Wonderful.
I love it. Well, listen, I so appreciate getting to catch up with you and really excited for the film and the book. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.